Modern society operates a specific kind of digital faith. We assume that if a high-resolution lens doesn't capture an event, the event simply didn't happen. Ethan Carter turned this skepticism into a career. As a travel vlogger with millions of followers, he specialized in bringing high-end recording equipment into notorious locations to dismantle supernatural claims with logic and light. His ultimate target was a hotel hidden high in the Carpathian Mountains of Romania, specifically room 307. During the winter, the heavy snow effectively seals the hotel, turning the luxury estate into a site of absolute physical isolation. Ethan viewed the trip as a scientific collision, intending to use 4K digital sensors to permanently erase a 90-year-old ghost story. The legend began in 1934. A young bride checked into room 307 the night before her wedding, only to vanish before sunrise. Forensic teams found the disappearance impossible. There was no sign of a struggle, no footprints in the snow outside, and no body. Because the door and window were both securely locked from the inside, investigators could find no physical path for her exit. For decades, the story survived on anecdotal accounts of humming and footsteps. Ethan arrived with the intent to replace those rumors with hard data and categorized facts. Ethan positioned 4 independent cameras to cover the bed, door, and window. Overlapping fields of view left the room with 0 blind spots. From midnight until 3:06 a.m., the equipment recorded nothing but the steady breathing of a sleeping man in an empty room. Then, at exactly 3:07 a.m., every recording device experienced a synchronized failure. The picture dissolved into violent static and 5 seconds of total blackness. Ethan woke up the following morning convinced his experiment had succeeded, as he had slept through the entire night without interruption. He only realized the truth after reviewing the files back home. During that 5-second blackout, a woman in a pale wedding gown appeared in the frame, standing perfectly still over his bed. Ethan's technological net had inadvertently provided the world with the first piece of empirical evidence for a 90-year-old haunting. Ethan immediately began a forensic analysis of the footage, searching for any technical glitch or human hoax that could explain the presence. He found a terrifying physical contradiction. While the room's mirror perfectly reflected the bed and the sleeping vlogger, it showed no reflection of the woman standing directly in front of it. The figure seemed to exist outside the laws of light and optics, remaining invisible to human eyes while successfully being encoded into digital space. Digital sensors appear to act as a highly sensitive medium, capturing frequencies and entities that bypass the physical constraints of a mirror or the human retina. Obsession eventually replaced Ethan's fear. 1 week later, he returned to room 307 to broadcast his experiment live to a global audience. As the clock approached 3:07 a.m., the room began to change. The lights flickered and the internet connection became dangerously unstable. The livestream chat suddenly exploded with warnings. Thousands of people watched a smiling woman appear directly behind Ethan, but when he turned around to look, he saw only an empty room. The livestream turned his entire audience into helpless witnesses, just seconds before the feed was cut. This digital camera footage from 2025 shows a travel filmmaker standing on an empty railway platform in the Scottish Highlands, seemingly reaching out to interact with thin air. When he walked away from that empty platform, he was holding a physical train ticket dated December 14, 1948, stamped with the name Margaret Ellis. Railway historians later examined the artifact. The cardstock, the ink composition, and the serial number all align with archival passenger records from 77 years ago. Those records show that Margaret Ellis boarded a train on that exact date and vanished. Her ticket remained missing for decades until it appeared in this filmmaker's hand. To understand how a physical object from a cold case materialized in the present day, we have to look at the events at a place called Black Hollow. Black Hollow Station was built in the late 1800s, an isolated stop deep in the Scottish Highlands. On the night of December 14, 1948, a passenger train carrying over 80 people entered these mountains during a severe winter snowstorm. This map traces the 1948 route. The train followed the tracks into the mountains until the signal abruptly terminates inside this high-altitude search zone. Teams searched the grid for months. The wreckage, the luggage, and the passenger count all remained at 0. Investigators concluded the mountains had swallowed the train, leaving a void of evidence that allowed local legends to take root. In 2025, filmmaker Daniel Brooks traveled to Black Hollow to spend a night alone at the station and document the folklore. He arrived at midnight to find the station in total decay. The ticket office had collapsed, and the tracks were buried in rust. The only surviving piece of infrastructure was an old station clock mounted to a wall, which was surprisingly still ticking. Daniel set up his tripod to record continuously until sunrise. aiming to capture the empty environment and disprove the stories. His modern camera was meant to document the absence of the supernatural, but it recorded a different reality instead. At 2:12 a.m., a freezing wind swept across the platform. Then, at exactly 2:13 a.m., the sweeping second hand violently stops. Suddenly, every trace of ambient sound in the Highlands completely disappeared. Through the silence, Daniel heard the sound of metal wheels rolling on the tracks, though there were no headlights or engine vibrations. A pristine 1940s-era train emerged from the fog and came to a halt. Inside, passengers in mid-century clothing sat perfectly still, holding newspapers dated December 14th, 1948. Every passenger on the train slowly turned their head to stare directly at Daniel. A woman in a gray coat stepped onto the platform, her shoulders covered in fresh snow. She whispered that he shouldn't be there, handed him a paper ticket, and vanished instantly. Daniel now held a physical artifact from a passenger who had been missing for over 7 decades. The train doors closed silently, and the cars faded back into the fog. Daniel immediately reviewed his camera footage to see the train he had just encountered. On the screen, the platform and tracks were visible, but the train and the woman were gone. The digital sensor had recorded only Daniel standing alone. While the digital footage was empty, Daniel was still holding the physical, authentic ticket in his hand. The camera captured a vacant station, yet Daniel's hand felt the weight of an object that crossed 77 years of history. Locals say the train only materializes during the winter, arriving at the station at exactly 2:13 a.m. These encounters only happen when a person is standing on the platform completely alone. Legend warns that anyone who steps onto those cars becomes part of the 1948 manifest and never returns. Receiving a physical ticket from a passenger suggests the train has officially reserved a seat for the person left behind. If you were standing on that platform and a passenger from the past handed you a ticket, would you step aboard or would you run?